Boom. I only need to see, or you would only need to see 1,000 visits per calendar year at this type of a practice because the reimbursement or the payment is $250 per visit instead of 100. So you need to see. Hey, welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to cover how any physical therapist can make $100,000 a year in any state, legally and compliantly. My name is Dave Kittle, owner of Concierge Pain Relief Home Physical Therapy in New York City, and the CEO of the Fieldmaker Group. And we are speaking with practice owners about partnering or acquiring some or all of their practice, or taking over the roles and responsibilities and the things that they hate and the things that they don't like to do. And maybe they want to stay in patient treatment. Anyway, today's topic, $100,000 a year compensation salary. Let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. And if you are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to follow along on the screen share of the Google Sheet here. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, then you just got to listen along. Here we go. Let me share my screen. Let's get into it. So, all right, your compensation. Let's just make all this the same format. Let's say you are shooting for, doesn't matter, again, new grad, maybe a little bit more challenging, but a couple years under your belt, but it could be new grad, seasoned veteran, therapist, PT, OT, SLP, whatever it might be. You are looking for compensation of $100,000 a year. All right. And let's get right into the gist of it. You have to generate 2.5 to 3x your costs. That is the gist of it. I'm going to go through some numbers. We're going to break it down, how many visits you kind of need to average, and two different scenarios. One scenario is traditional reimbursement of a practice that's average reimbursement per visit, payment reimbursement per visit, $100 per visit. And then we're going to look at a mobile concierge or a cash out-of-network practice where their reimbursement or total payment per visit is $250 per visit. And I know there's some practices, there's some payers out there that some of these insurances are paying $50, $60, $70, $80 a visit, but we're going to just use $100 as the base case, as the example here. So I'm sharing my screen right here. You have to generate 2.5x to 3x your total cost annually. So we're talking about compensation, health insurance, benefits, any other costs, taxes, liability insurance, all that. So really, you need to be considering, you need to be thinking about, how can I generate $250,000 to $300,000 for this practice, for my boss? You could use this on the front end with interviews. If I have therapists that come to me that are speaking this way, I would love it. I would say that our incentives would be aligned, or at least our beliefs and our understanding would be aligned. So let's go into a traditional, let's say traditional practice with reimbursement. Like I said, reimbursement per visit is, just to make numbers, round numbers easy, $100 per visit. And of course, we're going to have some assumptions here. We're going to make some assumptions. So I'm going to fill this up in a second. Give me a second. Stick with me. All right. Compensation, $100,000. We have some assumptions coming up in a second. Let's say 48 weeks. So 48 weeks at 3x. So 3x salary, or 3x compensation, 3x of comp, or total compensation, including benefits. We're going to break it down. How many visits would you need to average per year, per week, and per day? Visits per year. And let's use our trusty spreadsheet here. Simple formulas here. If your practice, or if you're interviewing for a practice and you're like, hey, I would love $100,000 as compensation, you could ask the person you're interviewing with, the boss, HR person, whatever, like, hey, can I understand the numbers, the financials here of the practice? If you want to share it, do you guys get reimbursed approximately $100 per visit across all your payers if you average every visit? Is it about $100, or is it like $75, or is it $150 or $200 per visit? Because then you can kind of back into these numbers. You'll have more leverage as a staff physical therapist in your next negotiation. And also, if you speak this language, I think a lot of my friends and colleagues that also own a physical therapy practice would appreciate this. A therapist that comes in and they're understanding, like, hey, I have costs, I have overhead. Here's how a practice could make sense of this type of a desire. Now, there's a lot of therapists that are like, I have a lot of student loan debt and I'm worth $100,000. And it's really, you're coming from like the wrong angle. That's not the right angle. The right angle would be, I need to generate $250,000 to $300,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, to get to $300,000 or $300,000 divided by $100 reimbursement, that's going to give us 3,000 visits. So 3,000 visits per calendar year. over a 48-week. So you got 2 weeks of vacation, then you got the next 2 weeks of holidays, PTO, sick days, whatever. So just approximately, you got 52 weeks in a year. Well, let's base this round numbers, we'll base this on 48 weeks of the year, and you're trying to generate 3x compensation. So what you would have to do is you'd have to treat 3,000 visits, and we're 3,000 visits per calendar year. We're going to divide that over 48 weeks, and we're going to get 62.5 patients per 48 weeks, 3x compensation, 3,000 visits per calendar year, 3,000 visits per calendar year, which breaks down to 62.5. So that means you got to average like 62, 63 visits per week. And then simply visits per day, we're going to say this 62.5 divided by 5 days a week that you're working. And you got to average 12.5 visits. So if a practice that you go to interview with, or a therapist, you're looking to make $100,000, you're interviewing with a practice. Hey, is it possible? And now we're going to get into these assumptions here. Is it possible for me to see an average 13 patients a day? That means you got to schedule, 14 or 15 patients a day. You got to have some room for cancellations, no shows, et cetera, right? So you got to, that's just the way it is with this type of model. So assumptions, let's get into some assumptions. So real quick, we're going to do some other things, but does this clinic have the marketing to bring in these new patients? Does this clinic have the ability to bring in this many new patients, to be able to see this many patients per calendar year? Is there scheduling capacity? Is there space? Is there room in this in the office, in this practice, wherever it might be? What is the owner's mindset? Are they open to this, or is it like, every salary is 70, 80, whatever, 70, $80,000, whatever, and an owner's not going to be flexible or open to this? It's going to depend on your interview, your skills, your performance. I think it's going to depend on your previous performance. So your resume, your references, who's vouching for you, where you worked before that, all that type of stuff. I think it depends on the clinic's performance in the neighborhood, like the reputation. Do they have the ability to, retain patients and all that? Anyway, so let's get into, let's say, the example of 2.5. So let's just move things down here. Let's go down to here, and we'll say, we'll say 48 weeks at 2.5x compensation. So then what we're going to do is we're going to say, for this example, the same type of practice, so that means you got to generate $250,000 divided by the reimbursement per visit. That's 2,500 right here. Same thing, visits per. So now let me slide this over, add a column. So now we're going to say 48 weeks of the year, 2.5x compensation, $250,000 divided by $100 per visit. $250,000 top line divided by $100 reimbursement on average. So you got to see 2,500 visits per calendar year. Visits per year. Then we had same thing, visits per week. Little sloppy here, but it's all right. We're going to make it work. So then we got your 2,500 visits per calendar year divided by the 48 weeks. You got to average, and we'll get rid of these decimal places. There we go. You got to average 52 completed visits per week in this model. Visits per day would simply be this number here, the 52 divided by 5 days of the week. And then we'll get rid of the decimal point. So it's, what happened? It disappeared. Visits per day, 52 divided by 5, 10.4 visits per day. All right. So now if we say the cash or mobile concierge type of practice, let's give that a look-see here. And we'll say the same type of thing. We're going to say 48 weeks we'll just keep it simple, at 2.5x compensation for cash or an out-of-network practice, if that makes sense. All right. So now we're going to say that their reimbursement, we'll say that reimbursement or their reimbursement and payment is $250 per visit. Following along, here we go. And then we're going to take the $250,000 that we need to generate at this clinic, let's just say, divided by $250 per visit. Boom. I only need to see, or you would only need to see 1,000 visits per calendar year at this type of a practice because the reimbursement or the payment is $250 per visit instead of 100. So you need to see less total visits. You need to treat and complete less total visits per calendar year in order to hit your $100,000 request or your $100,000 desired compensation. And then really easy peasy is we're going to just break this down and we're going to say we're going to say 1,000 visits per calendar year divided by the 48 weeks. And we need to see we need to average 21 visits per week across the entire rest of the year. And then we take the 21 divided by 5, and boom, we need to average about 4 completed visits per day in this type of a model. So again, it's the same type of thing here. Visits per year. Let's just add another column. Boom. Boom. Visits per year would be 1,000 visits per year in this cash out-of-network practice. Visits per week, 20.8. So we'll call it 21 visits completed per week in this arrangement, which breaks down to, on average, 4.1. Call it at least 4, or call it 5 if it's really anything over 0 is the next, rounding up. So you need to see about 4 to 5 patients per day in this model, this reimbursement, this cash out of network practice. So obviously you're treating less patients per day, per month, and per week. That's it for now. So hopefully that gives you some context, some understanding of if you want a certain level of compensation, you have to justify it. You have to cover your costs and typically more than cover your costs because of taxes, liabilities, overhead, rent, and so many other expenses that staff therapists don't even realize or know about. And practice owners, maybe we don't always do a great job at explaining and demonstrating all the other costs, marketing expenses, paid ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, recruiting, costs for recruiting, LinkedIn and Indeed ads, all these other things that we pay for that are behind the scenes that you don't even know about, costs for SEO, for website. I mean, a million things, a ton of things. And depending on the style of practice, here's a quick little breakdown as to how you could potentially make or command or demonstrate your desire to achieve $100,000 legally, compliantly, in an annual basis in any state in the United States. Hopefully, if this is valuable or helpful, if it is, subscribe to the Dave Kittle Show on YouTube, as well as iTunes or Spotify. We'll catch you next time here on the show. Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.